Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Annie Lau. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Chinese national team athletes conclude their Hong Kong visit with a university offer. The city adds more countries to Group A as it logs 9 new imported cases. And the Foreign Ministry issues stark criticism towards American democracy. Chinese national team athletes who took part in the Tokyo Olympics wrap up their Hong Kong tour with a visit to the Polytechnic University. They interacted with locals and shared tips on achieving success. Isaac Lee tells us more.
National team coaches and 5 Olympians, including table tennis medalist Ma Long and sprinter Su Mingtian, were welcomed by Home Affairs Secretary Casper Cui and Sports Institute Chairperson Lam Tai Fai at the Polytechnic University. In his welcoming speech, Lam, who is also the chairman of the Poly U Council, invited the athletes to study at the university after they retire. I will support your expenses. All of your expenses, he pledged. Ma showed his sense of humor when replying to Lam's invitation.
未来的学长学姐们，大家好。
He addressed the students as his future schoolmates.
你为什么跑得这么快?
During the question and answer session, Su, the Asian record breaker of the 100-meter sprint, was asked how he was able to run so fast. He attributed his speed to the technical support of the national team and observing other competitors when taking part in overseas matches. Meanwhile, another group of athletes interacted with youngsters from the Yunlong District Sports Association. They included Chen Yijun and Wang Zhouyu, the men's and women's weightlifting gold medalists.
The
city is very beautiful, commented Chen, who was in Hong Kong for the first time. He expressed hopes to interact more with locals in the future, when the world is no longer bounded by strict social distancing measures. The Olympians wrapped up their 3-day tour with a hotel lunch in Tsim Sha Tsui, where they dined with members of the city's sports federation and Olympic Committee. The sports stars returned to the mainland this afternoon, where they will undergo quarantine for 2 weeks before they head over to Macau. Isaac Lee, HKIBC.
Labour Chief Law Chi Kwong has dismissed allegations that public annuities only benefit high-income retirees and do nothing for those who are paid less. Meanwhile, the Financial Secretary says Hong Kong should support the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party and the country's constitution. A day after attending a seminar on Constitution Day, Financial Secretary Paul Chan took to his blog to express what he's learned about China's constitution. He said it lays a foundation for the basic law and the one country, two systems principle. Upholding the constitutional order of the SAR means respecting China's socialist system and supporting the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party, he wrote. Otherwise, the SAR cannot exist. He added that the national security law and electoral reform were introduced based on the constitution. It helps bring Hong Kong from chaos into order and ensures the city's prosperity, he wrote. Meanwhile, Labour Chief Law Chi Kwong wrote on his weekly blog to dismiss allegations that the public annuities plan only benefits high-income workers. In fact, he said it aims to help low- and medium-income retirees. He pointed out that high earners were never mentioned in his proposals, which were submitted to the government between 2015 and 2016. He said the annuity scheme obviously targets low-income retirees, given that its minimum investment threshold is set at $50,000. The upper premium limit was later raised from $1 million to $3 million to cover more people, including those in medium and high-income groups. Local doctors have stressed that all vaccines that make it into the city have gone through strict quality control. The reassurance came after a questionnaire revealed most Hong Kongers are concerned about where a vaccine is produced. Isaac Lee has the details.
As some governments around the world, including the SAR, begin pushing for a third COVID booster shot, Hong Kongers are once again mulling over which vaccine to choose. The Society of Hospital Pharmacists interviewed 5,000 locals in October. Around 4,000 indicated that they have either been or will soon be vaccinated. Among them, 70% said they will consider the jab's efficacy above all else when choosing between BioNTech and Sinovac. More than half also said they would take into account where the vaccine was produced. Meanwhile, nearly 90% indicated that they will get or have already gotten the BioNTech jab. Only 3% opted for Sinovac. Medical experts stressed that all vaccines that make it to Hong Kong have gone through a strict examination.
As a doctor in Hong Kong, I would assure that if Hong Kong people are concerned about the location of production of vaccines, I think they don't really have to worry too much about this one, because we have very well established mechanisms to make sure that all the vaccines produced are of high quality wherever they are manufactured.
As highly infectious variants continue to emerge, many scientists believe regular booster shots may soon become the new normal for the world. Almost all of the interviewees said people should be given a choice among different brands of vaccines if they have to get jabbed on a regular basis. The survey also showed most Hong Kongers are open to coexisting with the virus, which is in contrast with the SAR government's zero-COVID policy. Exactly, HKIBC.
The government has added 4 more countries to its list of high-risk regions. Starting Wednesday, non-Hong Kong residents who have stayed in Chile, the Cook Islands, Luxembourg and Romania in the past 21 days will be barred from entering the city. Hong Kongers returning from the 4 places must be fully vaccinated before boarding and undergo a 3-week quarantine upon arrival. This comes with the emergence of Omicron in these places. Meanwhile, Hong Kong saw 9 imported COVID cases today. All of the patients carried the L452R mutated strain. The city has now gone 58 days without any local infections. Global governments brushed aside criticism as they continued to tighten travel restrictions in the wake of the Omicron variant. Meanwhile, lockdown measures and vaccine passports have prompted protests in Europe. Sarah Rong has the details.
Chanting anti-vaccine slogans, thousands of people swarmed the streets of Barcelona in Spain. The largely maskless crowd was outraged at the rollout of vaccine passports, which will be needed for most social activities, from dining in a restaurant to enjoying a concert. Freedom is a human right, and forcing us to take the vaccine is a genocide, this protester exclaimed. Over in the Netherlands, demonstrations also took place against a partial lockdown imposed by the government to stave off a worsening outbreak. Public fatigue is growing across Europe, especially after harsh restrictions made a comeback in the wake of the fast-spreading Omicron variant. German Chancellor Angela Merkel urged her people to get vaccinated in what may well be her final appeal before leaving the office she's held for 16 years. And other governments continue to tighten their borders, with Britain adding Nigeria to its lengthy red list, despite criticism that travel bans are ineffective and stirring division.
I will stress these are temporary measures. We want to remove them as soon as we possibly can. But before we learn more about Omicron, it is right that we have these measures in place.
British health officials have found that the variant may reduce the virus's incubation period, making pre-departure testing more effective. But German scientists say it will take at least 3 months to produce a new vaccine, specially targeted for Omicron. Sarah Wong, HKIBC.
In the U.S., the parents of a teenager accused of murdering 4 of his fellow schoolmates in the U.S. state of Michigan have pleaded not guilty to involuntary manslaughter. A judge set the total bond for James and Jennifer Quambley at $1 million.
So they are in our jail, all 3 of them, the son and both parents. They are segregated, each individually in isolation. There was no indication that any of them were suicidal, but out of an abundance of caution, our amazing corrections team is doing suicide watches on all 3 of them.
During arraignment, James Crumpley denied that his son, 15-year-old Ethan, had full access to the handgun used in the Oxford High School shooting on Tuesday. He and his wife were arrested after an hours-long manhunt. They were discovered hiding in a warehouse near the border with Canada. Police warns that people who helped the couple hide could be facing charges next. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is on alert over China's increasing military presence near Taiwan. This came as Beijing criticized American democracy after crediting its one-party political system. More from Sarah Wong.
As U.S. President Joe Biden is set to host the Summit for Democracy later this week, China, which is not invited, sought to rival Washington with its own democracy forum. Over 500 guests from more than 120 countries and regions tuned in to the International Forum on Democracy in Beijing. The Communist Party's publicity chief, Huang Kunming, described democracy as a common value shared by all humanity. A one-size-fits-all democratic model doesn't exist, Huang declared, and countries should respect each other's differences instead of seeking confrontation. The Foreign Ministry went a step further, bashing America's democracy as a system fraught with chaos and failing to bring good to its people. Beijing also accused Washington of subverting other countries in the name of democratization. That didn't deter the U.S. defense chief from sounding an alarm over China's intensifying military activities near self-ruled Taiwan.
Certainly, it looks like a lot like them exploring what their true capabilities, and sure, it looks a lot like rehearsals. But again, we're in a competition with China, and we don't have to be in a conflict.
Austin stressed Washington's adherence to the One China policy, but underscored the need to resist forces that would put Taiwan's security at risk. The Pentagon chief denied that the U.S. is trying to eclipse China with an Asian NATO in the Indo-Pacific region, nor is it asking countries to pick a side. Sarah Wong, HKIBC.
Rescuers in Indonesia are racing to find survivors after a volcano erupted, killing at least 13 people and injuring dozens more. Volcanic ash blanketed villages while hundreds of people took shelter in mosques and schools. Mount Semeru, the highest mountain on the island of Java, erupted yesterday, sending panicked residents running for their lives. Geologists said days of heavy rain triggered the eruption, which brought searing gas and lava into a nearby river. The rain turned ashes and debris into thick mud, which has damaged roads and hampered rescue efforts. On to the weather now. Tomorrow will be cool in the morning and fine and dry during the day. Temperatures will range from 17 to 23 degrees before turning warmer midweek. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Sunday nights. We will be back at 11 with more news. I'm Annie Lau. Thanks for watching HKIBC. Good night.